I've trusted in Him. I've learned in the storm. Now I'm ready to step out in faith and trust Him in order to do the good works that He's prepared for me to do that are beyond my ability. Because I believe that just every one of the good works that God has prepared in advance for us to do are beyond our ability. It will take a miracle. God needs to move. So the question that I have before us is, what do we need to do to be part of the miracles that accomplish God's good work? What do we need to do? I like what Rick Warren said, and it's Rick Warren's material that we kind of built our whole giving campaign, Planting the Flag campaign that we're in right now. But I like what he said on this point. He said, when there is a need sensed by a few, and each individual accepts his responsibility to do what he can with what he has, regardless of the odds, then God works a miracle. This morning we're going to look at how Jesus trained His disciples, and we're going to get some insight into this. Now, this is a story that you have all probably heard. It's the only miracle that's recorded in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's a story that everybody is very, very familiar with, but often because we haven't taken the time to think about the context in which it happened, that we don't really grasp the full depth of what is going on. Let me set the stage. Okay, Jesus is training His disciples to carry on His work when He left. Okay, that makes sense. At this point in their training, when this miracle took place, every one of those disciples had preached the good news with power. Every one of those disciples had cast out demons, had healed the sick, had cleansed the lepers. Every one of those disciples had already done things that they had seen Jesus doing. They had just returned from their very first missions trip. Now, at Northridge Fellowship, a lot of us have gone on missions trips. So, just a show of hands. How many people here that are here right now have gone on a missions trip? We got a few of us in here. All right. Okay, how would you like it if this was your instruction for your missions trip? It says that when Jesus sent them out on this missions trip, He said, "Take nothing for your journey except a staff. No bread." Circle no bread. That's going to be very important in this parable. Very important in this parable. No bread, no bag, no money in your belt. Wear sandals with no extra shirt. Talk about traveling light. He sent them out with no food, with no nothing, just nothing but the shirt on their backs. And said, "I want you to go. I want you to do everything that I've trained you to do." And they came back, and I love what it says. The story picks up on their return. It says in Mark chapter 6, verse 30, the apostles gathered around Jesus, and they reported to Him all that they had done and taught. Wouldn't you have loved to have been at that debrief? Wouldn't that have been awesome? To hear all the things that had happened. And then, but here's the problem. It's because now Jesus' ministry has been multiplied times 12. So you've had Jesus that's been out teaching and healing and doing all these things and drawing a crowd. But now you've got 12 others that are doing the same. Can you imagine the pandemonium? Well, let's read about it. And then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat. Circle that. Mission trip, no bread. Now, their ministry and the pressure is so great on them, they don't have time to eat. That Jesus says, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." And so He puts them all on a boat. Now, for those of you who were here last week, this time the boat is a good place to be. The wind is at their back. The prevailing westerlies carry them across the lake. All they have to do is, for those of you who are sailors know that sailing, that is called running before the wind. And it is the easiest sailing that there is. You just spread the sails out and let her go. That's about all there is to it. It's great. It's quiet. It feels like you're not even moving at all because you're going at you're just going at the speed of the wind. It's great. And so they get this time in the boat, and they're going across the boat. It says they went by themselves to a solitary place in a boat. But now here's the problem. Many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. So Jesus says, come away with me to a quiet place. It turns out the only place that was going to be quiet was the boat. Because they're coming across the lake, and the people are running around the lake, and they are accumulating more people at every town that they go across as they go. And the crowd is getting bigger and bigger. How to be a part of a miracle? Part uno. That's one. To be a part of a miracle, you've got to be able to identify the problem. Listen to what happens. So they went away by themselves to the solitary place, but he saw them. When Jesus landed, he saw the large crowd. He had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began teaching them many things. Jesus sees this crowd. This crowd is now larger than the crowd that they saw before. The disciples are starting to see a problem here. The crowd is larger. Jesus is teaching. And then it says, by this time, it was late in the day. His disciples said to him, this is a remote place. They said, it's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. The disciples look at the thing, at the situation. They say, we've got a problem. We are in a solitary place. That we came to come away and be quiet. We are emotionally spent. We are physically exhausted, and we are hungry. Jesus had put just enough fuel in their tanks so that they wouldn't implode when they got there. Because do you think Jesus didn't know what was going to happen when they got there? I think he knew exactly what was going to happen when they got there. Just enough fuel in their tanks. They faced this crowd greater than what they left. The need is greater, and the resources are less. Large crowd, remote place, no food, cranky disciples. Sounds like church. just you guys are much better than that. Disciples said, Jesus, we got a problem. It's time for these people to pack it up and get out of here. All the miracles of Jesus start with a problem. So how to be a part of a miracle? Part deux. That's French. Verse 37. And Jesus answered them and said, you give them something to eat. Well, the disciples rightly grasped their responsibility to the people. They came to Jesus. They offered him a solution, but it wasn't the solution Jesus had in mind. Let's think for a moment about how they responded to the responsibility that Jesus had set before them. As it dawned on them what the problem was that they were facing. Because it's the same temptation that you and I all face whenever God puts something before us to do. The first temptation is to procrastinate. It was late in the day. Now, this problem was a problem from the moment they landed, and they knew it, and so did Jesus. But Jesus just poured himself into, he had compassion on the people. He was teaching, he was healing, he was doing all the things that he was doing, and I believe he was waiting for them to be ready to deal with it, to stop procrastinating. Finally, they couldn't procrastinate anymore, and they said, Jesus, we got to do this, send these people away. And that's the second thing that we tend to do, is we tend to pass the buck. Is what they were saying is, Jesus, let them fend for themselves. Let somebody else do this. Let somebody else handle the situation that you brought us into. Let somebody else, teach the Sunday school class. Let somebody else do the ministry. Let somebody else give to the giving campaign. Let somebody else do it.